Good evening, everyone, and good afternoon to some. Hello, happy Earth Day. Hi, I'm Christine Campeau. I'm the school programs manager here at the Adirondack Experience. Welcome to the program. We are going to talk about the balsam fir this evening, a standout conifer of the Adirondack forest, mostly due to its distinctive sweet smell. Most of you may have a balsam pillow at home, or if you've stepped inside any gift shop in the Adirondacks, that distinctive smell does come right out. I have a number of them here. Just a simple little one. And some of them have punny little phrases on them. For thee I pine. Well, there's not pine needles in here though. There are balsam needles. All pines are conifers, but not all conifers are pine. I'm going to go over a little conifer ID this evening and how to do the differences between the evergreens, the conifers that make up our Adirondack forests. And we'll talk about the balsam fir and how important it is to the Adirondacks and the many different uses for it. A little housekeeping thing that I forgot in the beginning. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A and our behind the scenes wizard will take care of that and I will answer some of the questions live this evening. So thank you for being here. And so we're talking about balsam pillows. I have some cool ones here to show you. They are the quintessential Adirondack souvenir and the staple of most gift shops around the region. I have an interesting one that is in our collection and was a good photograph for this evening's program. I'm going to show you that one first. This is in the collections here at the museum with an interesting punny little poem on it, bringing in many of the conifers, a few of the conifers in the Adirondack forest. Talking about pine and spruce, but inside are the needles of the balsam tree, that sweet smelling balsam. Other needles do not work well for making balsam pillows, for making beds and lean-tos, for making pillows. You don't want to do it with spruce. Spruce is very picky, and spruce does not have as nice a smell as balsam, but we'll get into that a little bit more. So I'm going to set this aside. Balsam Traditions is one of our most popular school programs here. We offer it every December. We bring students in and do some conifer identification, and the students get to make their own balsam bag. We usually supply them with a little bag like this. They can fill this up with balsam needles, and they also get to use a treadle sewing machine to sew up their own little bag to fill up with balsam needles. Now for this Try It at Home Balsam Traditions program, if you have a balsam tree in your backyard, you can try this with us this evening. Also, there is bulk balsam. You can buy it at tree farms. Moody Tree Farm in Saranac Lake sells big bags of balsam, and some floral shops also sell balsam. So you can buy already ground, already processed balsam. Still has that wonderful distinct smell. I'm going to show you how to take it off the branches tonight. And if you have a balsam tree in your backyard, you can safely harvest a little bit of balsam without harming the tree. On this Earth Day, we're not going to go rip branches off of trees. but I can show you how you can just do a little bit of a haircut, give them a little trim, and take some branches and those nice needles, and I'll show you how you can take those off. If you have a little bag, a little something to fill up, even a sock, you can put the balsam needles, and they stay fragrant for a long time. If you have a balsam pillow at home, you may have had it for some time, and it still has that nice smell to it. If you notice it starts to lose its smell, you can dribble just a little bit of water on this, put it in the microwave for just a few seconds, and it brings back that nice, sweet balsam smell. So these last for quite a long time. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes. And as I said, they're all over the gift shops in the Adirondacks. Big ones like this, filled with squishy balsam needles. For many years, making a balsam souvenir, making those balsam pillows was a staple for church fundraisers and community fundraisers. People got together and held balsam bees that they would work together to fill those pieces of fabric with the nice smelling balsam needles. That has been something that has happened in the Adirondacks for many, many years. Another use for balsam, you can see behind me, is a little model lean-to, and I have it filled with some balsam branches. Believe it or not, sleeping on the branches of the balsam tree was a popular pastime and was considered quite an experience to sleep on those branches. Balsam was referred to as the mountain goose because its needles are as soft as a goose feather, as they would say. I've tried it. It's all right, but I think I'm going to stick with my mattress at home. But if you want to have an outdoor experience, it is interesting to sleep on a bed of balsam. But again, this is something you want to do on your own property or with permission. There are lots of lean-tos on state sites, but you can't go out and cut down balsam trees and take their branches and put them in. There are people that have lean-tos on their property, and they do bed down. They may bed down their lean-to with fresh balsam boughs. I do want to show you a few photographs from our collection that highlight the bowed down lean-to and some other aspects of sleeping on and being around nice smelling balsam. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see, we'll bring this down and start this from the beginning. Here's a lean-to, or an open camp, as they're often referred to here in the Adirondacks, right here in Blue Mountain Lake. An early open camp completely lined with balsam. The sides, the top, and the bottom. In many cases, it's usually just the bottom that is covered with balsam boughs in the lean-to, but here they've really done a lot with the balsam boughs. Here's another lean-to where the whole thing is lined with balsam. This one's early. This guy, this is Harold to the left, with his friends having a picnic. Harold was a tuberculosis patient in Raybrook. This is interesting. This was the caption on the photograph, Mount Raybrook. But this is early on, and when tuberculosis patients were well enough to leave the sanatorium for the afternoon, going on a hike, spending time outside. Here's a group having a picnic lunch on a table laden with some delicious treats and with balsam as their tablecloth. It's kind of interesting. And this image is also sanatorium patients from the Saranac Lake area And you can see that bed of balsam. Balsam was considered restorative for health. Breathing in that fresh scent was said to help the lungs. So tuberculosis patients were encouraged to spend as much time outside, and these patients slept the night in a lean-to lined with balsam. We have a few interesting quotes on what it is like to sleep on a balsam bough bed. No, you don't know what you're missing. I'm going to come back and show you, whoops, bring this back up. I'm going to stop my screen share and just show you one of the balsam boughs and how it makes a nice springy bed. So you can see when you are making a balsam bed, you want to take that bough and not put it in like this, where it's sticking up, but turn it where it naturally curves, have that natural curve, and then weave those branches in. So the pokey part gets weaved in and weaved under, and it makes a nice springy bed. Sleeping on that nice smelling mountain goose. I'm going to go back to my screen share. These are students. This was quite some time ago. These kids are in college by now. I mentioned each year we do the Balsam Traditions program here at the museum. It's a very popular program. Students bow down the lean-to themselves. They weave the balsam boughs, and then I tell them they're spending the night, and I get some looks, but a lot of them do consider it to be a fun, and I do get some each time that are like, yeah, I would stay here, I would spend the night, while as others are like, nah, I'm going home, I'm gonna sleep in my bed. But this was quite a while ago before we changed the name to the Adirondack Experience. But students who come in for the Balsam Traditions program get to bow down the lean-to. They sew their own bag on a treadle sewing machine. This is them doing their balsam bee. So they're picking the needles off of the branches to fill their bag. And then they do conifer identification on campus. So it's a great program that mixes a lot of science, a lot of outdoor activity. They get to use a simple machine that they get very excited about using the treadle sewing machine, and it's a really fun activity. This year we did do Balsam Traditions virtually, so some of that activity didn't happen, but we did send them kits and they did get to create their own balsam bag. I showed them how to do it virtually, and we plucked balsam and had a balsam bee, and still a nice time was had with the virtual Balsam Traditions. Balsam is not just used for bowing down a lean-to or making balsam pillows, though. It was also used in making medicine, interestingly enough. And I have a really cool old piece. This is balsam jelly, and it says, clears the head and promotes free breathing. Collections piece we have. We have this little bottle. It's hard to see You can kind of see that there's raised letters on the side. This is Kemp's, for coughs. It's a balsam syrup, and on the side, so it says Kemp's balsam syrup, and it says for that cough. So this little bottle held some syrup made from the needles and the branches of the balsam tree. I don't know if it was snake oil or if it actually worked, but medicine was made from balsam. And one of the most popular balsam medicines was something called Save the Baby. This is a balsam salve, or salve made from balsam. It smells a lot like Vicks, kind of the same consistency as Vicks. Looks very much like that, but in the ingredients, it does say Canadian balsam. So many medicines were made, and other conifers are used to make tea. Hemlock's used to make tea, and cedars used to make some tea. Balsam was used and more for medicines for coughs, for colds, and others used it for burns or scrapes. When students are here visiting and doing the Balsam Traditions program, I share with them a story from a local man who made his own medicine using balsam. And he actually used two conifers. He used hemlock and balsam, and he called it Hemball salve. Harvey Carr lived here in Blue Mountain, and he was a member of the Adirondack Liars Club, whose motto was, "We always tell the truth, even if we have to lie to do it." And I'll share with you a story that Harvey would tell about his Hemball salve. So he would brag quite often that his Hemball salve was some very powerful stuff. It would clear up anything just like that. If he had a scrape on his hand, he'd take some Hemball salve, he'd put that on there, boom, cleared up just like that. He tells the story of one time when he was splitting firewood with his axe. His axe slipped and it came down on his foot, putting a big gash through his boot right into his foot. Yucky. Should have gone to the hospital. What did he do? He put Hemball salve on there. Cleared up just like that. Even repaired his boot. Powerful stuff. Now, Harvey, he had a little dog, and her name was Spot. Spot was a happy little dog that would walk around following Harvey everywhere, just wagging her tail, happy as can be. She'd follow Harvey down to his woodlot, where he'd be splitting up big chunks of firewood with his axe, big blocks, splitting them up into firewood. So one day Harvey's down there splitting up his firewood, and he brings up his axe to bring it down on that block. Just as little Spot came running by, and her tail passed over that block just as Harvey brought the axe down. Chop! Chopped her tail clean off, just like that. Poor little Spot was yipping and crying, and Harvey's like, "Oh no, do." He got his Hemball salve out. Took his Hemball salve and he rubbed a little bit on that little stub of a tail. And after a little while, little Spot, she stopped yipping and crying, and she started to wag that little stub of a tail, and then all of a sudden, poof, she grew a new tail. Just like that. That Hemball salve was some powerful stuff. That stuff that Harvey made. That's not the end of the story, though. So Harvey was thankful. Whew, poor little Spot. She went running off, wagging her tail, happy as can be. Good. So later in the season, he's cleaning up his woodlot, and what does he happen to find? Spot's tail. The first one, the one that got chopped off. He picked that up and he thought, what do I do with that? Got his Hemball salve out. Rubbed some on there. All of a sudden, poof! Grew a new dog just like that. And then he had two little spots running around, wagging their tails, happy as can be. And you couldn't tell those two dogs apart. Powerful stuff, that hem Balsam. Kids like that story, but they tell me it's not true. I said, there are some parts that are true in there. Harvey did make a salve, and he did use hemlock and balsam. But if it grew puppy dogs, there probably wouldn't be any hemlock and balsam left in our Adirondack forest. So, bit of a tall tale, but a fun one at that. Okay, would you like to see how to identify some conifers in our Adirondack forest? We hear a lot of times, there's a pine, and they're not all pines. Even after I tell students about all the conifers, we do all the identification, we make our balsam pillows, and they say, oh, it smells so good, the pine that's in here. It's not pine. Okay. So all pines are conifers, but not all conifers are pines. So we'll take a look at some others and how you can identify them in the forest. We're going to stop this. And let me bring this down, and I'm going to bring up another. Okay, so we're going to look at 7 conifers that live in the Adirondack forest. First one we have is a true pine. White pine, their needles are in clumps, in bunches. And what works out well for identification with the white pine is they are in clumps of 5. And the word white has 5 letters. So there you go, 5 needles in a bunch. They grow nice long cones, and white pines grow nice and tall and straight in our forest, usually high above the others. Here are some white pines on our Adirondack campus, Adirondack Experience campus. So when you're looking at the tree, if you can't identify, look on the ground, see if you can see some needles. If you see some light green, the white pine is a little bit of a lighter green, the needles, and clumps of 5. Next, we have another true pine, the red. The red pine's needles are a little bit longer and a darker green and a little stiffer. They come in bunches of 2, which doesn't help us at all with the word red, but you'll know it's not a white pine. Nice, tall, straight tree. Beautiful red pine. And here are a few red pine trees on the campus. Their cones are shorter and squatter than the white pine cones. And I'll show you some pictures of cones in just a bit. Next, we have the spruce. We have white spruce and red spruce, but they're all green. Spruce are a nice puffy tree. Their needles are sharp, though. If you touch them, they're stiff and they're picky. The needles go all the way around the branch to create a nice puffy look on the white spruce. This is a white spruce that we have here at the museum. You can see it's a nice puffy tree. Spruce is a nice sturdy tree. Like balsam, it's often used as a Christmas tree. Spruce does have a distinctive smell like balsam, not as sweet of a smell. Some, I will say, compare the smell of the spruce to cat urine. It's a much different, much stronger smell. But they do make sturdy, they are sturdy trees. Next, we have the hemlock. Hemlock has short, flat needles. They're a very bushy tree, short, flat needles, and they kind of have that zipper look to the needles. Short and flat. They're a very bushy tree. Hemlock sort of looks like it's having a bad hair day because they're very bushy, and they get just little cones on them. They do produce an incredible number of cones. So if you do have hemlocks on your property, you will see that there are a number of those little cones produced every year. That you'll find them all over the ground, many, many, many cones on the hemlock. And you can see that bushy, they're good shade trees. They do offer a lot of shade because they do have a lot of branches, very, very bushy, and have a lot going on, the hemlock. The cedar's a conifer, and the needles don't really look like needles. They look more feather-like. They're very flat and feather-like. Cedar also has a distinctive smell. We have some tall cedars here at the museum on campus. You also see low hedge cedars. This is something, though, that the deer love to eat. So if you have cedars, like see these tall cedars here at the museum next to our lean-to, are pretty safe from the deer, but any low cedars, the deer will come and munch them in the wintertime. There are a couple of cedars that we have. The tamarack is an interesting specimen because we think about conifers, or those softwood trees, or those evergreen trees. We call them evergreens. Well, the tamarack is the evergreen that breaks the rules. This tamarack is not dead. It's just simply like the broadleaf trees. In the wintertime, it's naked. It loses all of its needles. So here is tamarack has lost all its needles, and they are getting their needles back. They do grow beautiful. Those are the buds growing back those needles for the summer. This is what it looks like in the summer months. Beautiful green, and then in the fall, it turns this lovely shade of yellow, and all those needles fall off, and the tamarack is bare all winter long. You can tell, though, even in the winter and early spring, that it is a conifer, because check out all the little cones that it has on it. If you look up and see all those little cones, you know, it is a conifer. It's just that conifer that we often say breaks the rules, loses all its needles. And finally, this brings us to the balsam. Balsam is very similar to hemlock in the needles. They're a little bit longer than hemlock, and they're flat. We don't have many balsam on campus here at the museum, but there is this tall one next to the logging building. That's that nice soft, that mountain goose. You can touch its very, very soft needles, flat, not picky like the spruce. And what's nice about the balsam tree, it's very, very tree, what you think of as that classic tree shape. So you can see this balsam next to the hemlocks over here. There's the very bushy hemlocks, and then there's the balsam that has that familiar like triangle shape. And that's what makes them also good Christmas trees, because they have this very uniform shape to them, especially that top of the balsam. Let's stop that there. And I'm going to switch cameras. Something that all conifers have are cones, but they're not all pine cones. This is your white pine cone. This is your red pine cone. This is a white spruce cone. This teeny one is a hemlock. Hemlocks produce a lot of cones. This one here is the tamarack. And then we have a teeny tiny little cedar cone here. These are all empty containers. They've all dumped their seeds for the year. But you can see the many variations. The conifers, their needles are very distinct. Their cones are very distinct from tree to tree. Even the pines, the red pine to the white pine, very distinct differences. The only cone I'm missing here is the balsam cone. They keep their cones very high up to in the top of the tree. You don't see a lot of them down low, and they don't drop them to the ground like they don't shed them like the white pine does. They open, but they often stay at the top of the tree. It's hard to find the balsam cones. They don't shed them like the hemlock. Those cones are always on the ground. You always see real true pine cones on the ground, but not a lot of balsam unless that tree is down. All right. So if anyone does have some balsam branches at home, or if you do have a balsam tree on your property or someone close by, I don't advise taking it off of state land. You can get a few branches, very carefully remove branches. I give the tree just a little haircut. If you happen to have some snippers, you can snip off a little piece. It does not take much to create that nice smell. Now, if you have fabric and you're making a big balsam pillow, this is going to take a long time. Those balsam bees that I mentioned earlier, they would often use a piece of equipment like a balsam grinder. They would grind up everything, like so the whole piece would go in and it would grind. Because actually a lot of that smell does come from the branch here. It's not all in the needles, although the needles do carry that smell. So this would take a long time to produce. If you just want to make a little bit, the best thing to do is get a piece of paper and then very carefully, and you can do this with fresh balsam, the needles come off pretty easily. Take your pointer finger and your thumb, just reach on either side and then gently pull down, and you will pull the needles off and let them fall right on to the paper, and just continue that very carefully. If you get a little bit, you can also take a little bit of the branch, you can snap off little pieces, but you don't want a whole piece like this inside your bag. But just very carefully, just keep doing that, and you'll get a good little pile of balsam needles that you can then use your paper as a funnel to put into. I have this nice little Adirondack experience bag right here. So open that up and use your paper as a funnel to pour those needles right on in. And this will stay nice smelling for a while. You can keep that. And if it does start to lose its smell, you just put it in the microwave for a little bit and you're good to go. Now, your hands are going to get dirty and sticky. lot of students are like, oh, look at, and the ends of your fingers are going to get black. If you use a little bit of oil, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of baby oil, that'll take that right off. You can take that right off. So just very carefully. You can also pluck the needles. Plucking takes a little bit longer, but pull those off very gently, pull those down, and you can make a nice smelling little sachet or a balsam pillow. If you sew, you can sew up and leave a little corner open in your piece and push in the balsam needles that way. Create a little funnel where you can push those balsam needles in. We do it very simply with the students. They sew up their little bag on the treadle sewing machine. We keep the top open. They dump their needles in with the little funnel, and then we just tie a little ribbon around that. Very simple little balsam souvenir. I talk to students sometimes years later. Do you still have your balsam bag? Yes, I do. I still have it. So it's a fun, nice, like I said, the quintessential souvenir, that nice smelling balsam. All right, and that brings me to the end of what I had to say. Are there any questions? Yes, the grinding of, so we do have a comment. Yes. Yes, that's, so I know some locals that grind some of the branch wood up and add it to the needles for their pillow. Is that something you've seen? Yes, because a lot of the smell is actually in that in the branch. So grinding the balsam needles, I've looked for a grinder. I've looked for something that might work to grind up the balsam needles. I've yet to find the perfect piece. The perfect thing to do it. But yes, if you take a little bit of that, it might be good to put a little bit of the branch in, because you'll get some of that oil, some of that that good smell will remain and come from there. Muslin works but well. We had a question of what kind of material do you suggest using for the bag? Muslin works well. Which is a little heavier than a cotton. This is like a little canvas right here. These little bags are made out of a little, a little canvas, so a little heavier weight. Otherwise, you might get some needles that are poking through. So little bit of a canvas or a little thicker muslin. How long to put it in the microwave? Just a few seconds. So if you have a little balsam bag like this, okay, and you feel that the smell is starting to get stale, sprinkle a little bit of water on here. Don't soak it, just a little bit of water. Put it in there, maybe 30 seconds tops. That's probably good. You don't want to cook your balsam, okay? But just 30 seconds, just put that in there and you should be good to go. I have a question. Could you use an old-fashioned meat grinder? I tried that, not successful. So I did try that one time. It just chokes up the meat grinder. Something. All right. There aren't any other questions. I thank you very much for joining me this evening. I know this was kind of simple conifer identification, and this is how you make yourself a nice, easy, nice smelling little balsam souvenir. Happy Earth Day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh, I have another question, sorry. I haven't tried a food processor. Oh, that's a good idea. And I have heard, so someone says, and take an empty coffee can with a hole in the bottom and pull those through. That's a good idea. And I have seen that done. Yes, that will strip the needles faster. Yes. Coffee grinder I have not used. I haven't tried a coffee grinder. Not sure if that would have to try that. Good suggestion. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, wow. They make wonderful souvenirs. Balsam bags are the best souvenirs, the best to bring to family, especially because balsam's an alpine tree. So bringing it to the south, bringing it to places where the tree does not grow, that's why it makes such a great souvenir. Thank you so much for your kind words. I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a great evening, everyone.